Hello, my name is Karen. Remember to write my name on the ballot in November for the presidency. I will lead you to a place where planet Earth has never been. Right now I'm going to talk to you about my speech. I wrote my book, second time, published it. I'm a published author. I want to talk about my life a little bit. And I have my computer here, and I have my script right in front of me. I want to tell everybody, I was an average person, so I thought. At the age of 3, I said my first prayer to God. We lived in a small house with my parents and 2 siblings, and the 4th sibling was on the way. You may want to know what was all about my prayer. I was 3 years old, and I asked my mother to get me something to drink. She became mad and said my drink is on the door of the refrigerator. She wouldn't give me my drink. She was cross with me. I took it personally. I went in the bathroom and hid underneath the staircase. I looked up and I cried. I prayed to God and asked, God, where did you send me now? It is at this moment I ask God to make sure that I have a home, medical care, keep me warm in the cold, keep me from hunger, keep me clothed, and to keep me safe. And today, God granted my wishes, and I realize He granted my wishes all of my life. For 30 years, I went to counseling and have been on medication. As I continue, you'll see why I need extensive psychological help. It's not keeping me from being able to do the things I truly want to do, especially at this moment. I was being yelled at age 3. Imagine a mother yelling at a 3-year-old asking for something to drink. This is the beginning of my life. I had good times and I had bad times like everybody else. The important thing, I learned if you're tired and can't pick up your arms to throw a punch like other boxers, then say this to yourself: fight one more round. That was my motto for all of my ups and downs. I had a problem with my mother always yelling at me on a regular basis. This lasted into adulthood. I continued my life having fun and enjoying all of my adventures. I led a spiritual life and I was happy. I learned many things while living a life for God and mostly helping God's people. As I did that, my words were heard from God. I experienced many things to help to get His word out to the people. When I was about 5 years old, and throughout my life, I would go to heaven and see God and Jesus. You know that chair that on Star Trek that the captain sat in? Well, that was the exact kind of chair that God sat in way back when. And I would climb up onto God's lap when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, and He'd hug me and share His love with me. He gave me all of His love. I was driving one day, and this is how I help people and make changes in our lives for the betterment of all. I was speeding, and then the police officer stopped me and gave me a speeding ticket. I said to the police officer, "Thank you. If you didn't stop me, I could have injured myself or another person, or even a child." I was near a school. So he handed me the ticket, and I told him just what I told you. And that was the time that everything changed, and we are thinking of safety first for your own self and for all others. My life was quite eventful. There were many experiences and teachings throughout my life. I had to reach out to as many people as possible. I shared God's words of wisdom to all of the people. God didn't want me to say anything about what I was taught by Him. I thought I was doing the right thing, speaking God's words on behalf of all of us. I thought that people needed to learn God's ways to make this country the best it can be. Then, God would punish me, always, for spreading God's words to all. He had the people laugh at me, mock me, put me down, and belittle me and demean me. Every time I spoke spiritual, I could never understand why I was to be quiet. I never understood why. People need to learn God's ways, and how else are they going to learn but informing people of God's ways and what He wants us to do? And I had to go get through all that negativity and evil feelings, bad feelings. And I would always say to myself, fight one more round. Then one day, God broke me. He used to put me up against the wall and yell at me. I was sick one night. I had diarrhea and I was vomiting. There was nothing left inside me. It is at this time I told God that I will obey Him as requested. Well, that lasted one day, and then I returned to talk about God's way of being. I kept sharing God's wisdom to the people. We are still alive, aren't we? I got God to teach us the way to be and not punish us when we do not know what we did wrong. We, all of us, will be punished for an unknown reason. People need to be taught, and they want to be taught. They don't want to be punished. They need to be taught on how to be. God's teachings, for me, were to share my information received by God with the people. It is then that is the way to be enlightened, leading toward Jubilee for us all. God keeps enlightening me on the good happenings and still learning and changing, teaching us on how to become a better person. Let us, all of us, receive the light of the God to be shared by all throughout the world. I have done many things in my life. At age 5, I was doing acrobats on the floor, and I was jumping up and down on the trampoline. I did a front handspring and fell into the mirror. I was hoping the mirror wouldn't fall down upon me. Luckily, it didn't fall on me. The teacher, Bill Miller, awesome man, very talented, very athletic, very powerful, very strong. His name was Bill Miller. He called me and I sat on his lap. I learned where I should start the front handspring. After a few minutes, the pain subsided. I went back in line as I left him. He gave me a little pat on the butt. It is then I realized someone cared about me. Well, it is at this time that I decided not to have alcohol, never to have non-prescribed drugs, and no smoking tobacco. And that is the case, and it continues to this day. I played many types of sports, swimming team, I was the diver, and I was a basketball player. I was in the high school band, and I played the clarinet. I marched in the Rose Parade, California in 1973. We also performed and marched at Walt Disneyland. Then we spent our time in the theme park and just having a great time. I went to college at Southern Connecticut State University and majored in physical education. I earned a Bachelor of Science degree in 1982. Be aware, all those happenings of demeaning and making me sad and difficulties interacting. I had no friends, only associates. and I never stopped talking about God's words. And I'm telling you this because I want you to be aware of what my successes were. I earned my Master of Science degree in exercise physiology. My college years were great. I got to talk to people and other students and pass on my spiritual thoughts. I did lots of brainstorming of my spiritual thoughts and about life. I always thought, a person can say whatever is on their mind. I did many things in my life and I never had a good financial income. I never saved my money because that was the way my employment was. I spoke about God's words. It was a nice thing to do, to express myself openly. I don't understand why people were so quiet about speaking spiritually. I was preparing myself for my future adventures. I have many different jobs throughout my career. They were all low-paying jobs. I was a lifeguard. At age 16 years old, I saved a person's life. They went under the water. Once we got to him out of the water, I did CPR on him, and my partner and I saved his life. Turned him back onto his side. He started breathing. I rolled him onto his back, and he woke up. Thank the Lord. I went to live in St. Petersburg, Florida. I went to a small college and learned and received an EMT degree, Emergency Medical Technician. The next year at the same school, I got my paramedic certificate, and I worked on an ambulance. I worked as a paramedic in Florida. Then my spiritual guide had me return to Connecticut. I knew I was going to need help to do my future. Then years later, I worked for Campaign Ambulance. I saved a man from cardiac arrest, and I got him back from the brink of death. I saved his life. This man had no brain damage, no heart damage. He was fine. At the arrival of the emergency room with my co-workers at my side, holding on to the stretcher, and once we put him onto the stretcher, he woke up on his own, and he started to breathe. He did not have any heart damage and no brain damage. He made a full recovery. I felt alive that very moment. Let me reiterate, it was nice to have my EMT co-workers walk down the corridor of the emergency room with no need for CPR nor oxygen. It was nice to walk down the corridor with all of my co-workers. That is a scene that I'll never, ever able to repeat. It's something I will never forget. At another call, while working on the ambulance, and I never forgot how I delivered a baby boy in the ambulance. It was a healthy baby. Everything went well. With all that had happened, it was created by God to experience such gifts. Hats off to God our Savior. In the 1990s, I worked in the physical therapy office. It was a private company. That was a great job. I was helping people when they were sick and in need of medical care. It was the year 1989 and 1990. I got very sick. I wasn't able to think clearly. I had voices in my head and it scared me, and I was moody and fighting to be like an average person. I was diagnosed with having a mental illness, a mental condition, nothing to be ashamed of. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and depression. It was not easy to live with my mental condition. The people would laugh at me and mock me. I spoke openly about my mental illness and my spiritualism. I believe that my mental health helped me to interact with the entities in the fourth dimension. I went to college, and I got a Bachelor of Science degree and a Master of Science degree despite being schizophrenic. I had to distinguish what was real thoughts and what was fallacy in my life. I was admitted into the hospital for a month, so the medication takes an effect. Once I was on medication, I felt much better. My mind was better, the voices were under control. I could now hear God and the angel's voice clearly inside my mind. This was a major event in my life, and one that I have to live with for the rest of my life. This was a major event in my life. As time passed, And I kept learning how to live with my mental illness and my spiritual life. Then there were more happenings in my life that include having my own business, the Heart of Aerobics and Conditioning. I worked in a long-term healthcare facility for many years. I had the residents sitting in the chair pumping iron, literally pumping iron, 90-year-olds. I had the aerobic exercises, strengthening the exercises, flexibility, and a lot of laughs. We exercised uplifting music. We had a wonderful experience. I went to about 4 places to teach the exercise class. All of the seniors enjoyed themselves. When President Bill Clinton left his office, he started a foundation. I was at his 65th birthday gala. It's the first time I met him. I asked him to help a place where the people were living in a bad situation in Africa, South Africa. President Clinton went to this location and transcended the village into a city, where Madam Hillary Clinton, 20 years later, she did a speaking event in the once village into a prospering city at a college. This was amazing, and it will be an example on how to bring a community in a bad situation to a city run by the people. This was observed by the people in the heavens to use this as a blueprint for all other places in the universe. Congratulations to President Bill Clinton and Dr. Chelsea Clinton and Madam Hillary Clinton. I volunteered for the Clinton Foundation for people who lost everything to the uprising waters from a hurricane in New York City. It was the Rockaway area. I helped many people who suffered because of the hurricane. This was an awesome experience. I felt so alive, so helping people. It was wonderful. I always had a fear of the red light on the video camera. It is then that I decided to produce my very own shows. With the shows, I spoke about all the happenings in the world. This is a way to have the people see me when they saw my shows. I was a television producer under the direction of Public Access Program provided by Comcast Network in Connecticut. I co-recorded the first year shows with my dear friend Reverend Dorothy Peebles and my spouse, David. After a year, Reverend Dorothy parted from doing shows, then I was to do the shows on my own with my husband. I have produced shows for 9 years and shot more than 400 shows. There are over 150 shows on YouTube under the name Karen Weinstein. You can also look for it under Karen Krill Weinstein. We did shows at Comcast Studios without getting paid, and that was okay with me. I was doing God's work. I was producing shows at Comcast for 5 years. The shows were put on public access for all to see in the local area. On the show, I would talk spiritually about my ideas and my thoughts. Again, I had to send God's messages out to the people. I had to leave Comcast Network. I decided to do my shows from my home. I continued to produce my very own shows in my home. I was putting up shows on YouTube. This was an exciting time for me and for my husband David. His amazing support for me encouraged me to do all the things we have done together. He was my director and the cameraman. He is my hero. Continuing with my life, Dave and I had a professional exercise video recorded called Kids Exercise with Arfie. Arfie was an upright dog in a very hot costume. Arfie was my husband, David. He was very hot in that costume. He wore it all weekend through the recording of the shows. And he wore this costume under those bright lights. The participants were mother and daughter and son with his mother. The children were 7 and 8-year-old youths. The show was professionally done with an experienced director and a professional television producer. I didn't make any money off it. I saw miracles happen by the angels. Another situation I'd like to describe to you is I saw a miracle happen by the angels. A young boy was in the middle of the street with his bike. There's a bend in the road. This truck was driving fast, and he can't see beyond the bend. The truck driver was driving fast, and he couldn't see around the bend and couldn't see the boy in the street. We were sure he was going to hit this young boy. He wouldn't have stopped in time due to how fast he was driving. Dave and I could only watch. There's no way to intervene to save that child's life. We could only pray for a spiritual miracle. As we watched the boy standing in the street with the bike in front of him, it was at this time that we saw his shirt become tight against his chest. The boy was moved back a few feet. Then his bike moved closer to him. And then this was repeated again. The boy made it to the side of the road as the truck went speeding by the boy. The boy was okay. In my eyes, this was a spiritual miracle. Dave and I saw everything, and we couldn't help the boy at all. But an angel was at work saving the boy's life, and he didn't even know it. The spiritual world guides us and protects us in more ways than we know. My family was mean to me. They would talk, and I couldn't talk because I spoke spiritually. The people in my family made me miserable, kept getting attacked by God. I didn't listen to him. I had a bad upbringing. God tried to stop me from talking about my spiritualism with other people. However, my father was nice to me, and my mother and my brother, siblings, did a lot of bad things to me. I was sad all of the time. My soul was 2 inches high in my body. I never knew why I couldn't talk spiritually to all the people and about my experiences. Another time, at home one night, Dave and I got stuck in the bedroom. The door handle broke, and so we couldn't open the door. After 2 hours, we tried everything we could to open that door, but it wouldn't open. We were tired and desperate. Finally, I sat down. I spoke to angels, and what I said was this: Archangel Michael, open this door. The door opened. I grabbed the door while Dave ran to me and saying, if I didn't believe it before, I now believe. All I could think of was the door closing again, so I grabbed the door so it wouldn't close. I didn't want to be in their bedroom for another 2 hours. I had to go to the bathroom. So, we are here on this planet to learn in all ways of being. Miracles are happening everywhere in our world, whether we can see it or not. We are gifted with an angel. Believe. This is how I live and learn. This is how I want to live. People, how do you want to live in today's world? How do you want to live in the future? Think about that. How do you want to live in the future? Would you like to become the best person you can be? I teach the soul and make it bright and brighter as each day passes. Vote for me in November. Karen Crow, Weinstein. Write my name on the ballot. Thank you, everybody. Buy my book, Karen's Spiritual Journey. It's on Amazon. You can buy it there. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you.